Hey retro community, how's it going out there? So today I want to do a retro computer build, although this isn't quite as retro as some of you are probably expecting. I'm not talking about a 386, 486, or even a Pentium. I'm talking about a K7 level or an unofficial 786 level PC. And I'm going to be using my original Duron 600, which was AMD's version of the Celeron, although it was way better than the Celeron. And due to its potential performance benefits through overclocking, it could even, in some cases, be better than a Pentium 3 when you factor in cost. Now, I want to build something older than this, but this is the oldest CPU I have a motherboard for. I do have a K62. I think it's at 233 megahertz, maybe 333, I forget. But I don't have a board for it. I also have a Pentium 3, but I don't have a board for that either. But the K62 is even older. Now, the reason I wanted to build this is I have an older TV card that also has, which has, an RF input, but it also has a composite input. And I want to try and use that to capture footage from older systems that maybe don't have anything above RF, or maybe they only have composite output. Now, I know I can buy devices for modern computers that'll capture through USB and probably do a lot better job of it, but I want to see if this card will, do the job for now, and then I can always go later on and, get something more modern. Plus, it gives me something to do during this whole world situation that's going on, because this is happening uh, end of March, beginning of April. So I don't know how much I'm going to record today because I don't know how long it's going to take me to do this, and I don't want to have like a 3 hour long video. Although I will be obviously cutting and editing and fast forwarding when I upload the video. But I may do this in two parts. Maybe I'll do a build first, and then I'll do a software install, operating system, things like that. Hoping that if I use a Duron 600 that I'll be able to install DOS and Windows 3.1 as well as Windows 95, 98, 2000, maybe even XP, and then also potentially, just to throw some more retro operating systems on there, Windows NT 351, Windows NT 4, just to have these different operating systems to play around with. I know I can virtualize all that stuff, but I don't want to do that. I want to do it with physical hardware. So as I said, we're going to do a Duron 600 megahertz, although I do have a Duron 1.1 gigahertz, and I have several different Athlon processors, including Athlon XPs, although I don't think anything before Windows 98 will work on an XP. I also have this older MSI motherboard. It's a socket A, socket 462 motherboard. Not sure if it works or not because it's been a while since I've used it. It does have 3 DDR1 RAM slots. But as you can see, it looks like it's in good shape. It's relatively clean. None of the capacitors seem to have been leaking. They don't seem to be popped or anything. CMOS battery might need to be changed out. We'll see. I'm not sure about that just yet. We'll find out. I've got a few of those batteries laying around anyway from other projects. But the other thing that I'm going to have to do, obviously, is pick a case. And I've got a few cases that I had laying around. I've got an old beige, and I have some, I don't want to call them modern cases, because by today's standards, they're definitely out of date, but I don't want to use the beige one because I want to save that in the event that I do get a motherboard for the K62, or in the event that I pick up an even older board, like a 46 or a Pentium class board and chip. So I'm going to go with this here. It's the X Dreamer 2. Let's see if I can get it on camera a little bit better here. It's got an acrylic front and LED lit display here. I forget if these fake screw buttons light up or not. I don't remember. Let's see if I can't get it on the overhead too. Maybe get a better view of it. But we'll go ahead and I'm going to have to take this off the table and pull the case out, and I don't remember if I left any components in this or not, so we may have to do a little surgery on it and remove older components, and this won't come out of the case. Also has a mount for a top case fan, so that's going to be very beneficial. And it does look like there's a motherboard in here. I have no idea what's in here. Guess we're going to find out together. You know, acrylic panel window light up computers worked. So let's do this here. I'll tilt this on the side. Looks like it's an AMD processor. And motherboard. Well, I think it's an Asus motherboard. Compatible, obviously, with AMD, but I don't know what processor's in here. Capacitors look like they're in good shape. I might just use this motherboard here because it's going to be a better one than the MSI motherboard. At least in my opinion. MSI's gotten better over the years, but when they first came out, they were not that reliable. That's for sure. Definitely going to have to clean this out. Both boards should basically have the same support in terms of chipset and functionality on board. Sound, I don't think either have onboard video. No, so I definitely have to put a video card in there. Of course, that's the other problem that comes in Windows 3.1 because this is AGP. I mean, I can put PCI video cards in there too, but I don't have any. I have an AGP card. It'll be tough trying to find drivers for this thing. Though, what I've done in the past, in similar situations, is I would try to find an equivalent driver for a driver for an equivalent graphics card from a previous generation. So, let's say you had an ATI Rage Pro or whatever. I would look for an older ATI video card that would work in Windows 3.1. Most likely just 2D graphics, which is really all I'm interested in anyway. Most of the games at the time were still on DOS, and DOS games were written to support 3D accelerators directly anyway. So that's what I've done in the past, and I can try to do that again now. This also seems to already have a floppy drive in it. I'm hoping that works as well. If not, I've got a couple of spares. This does not have any RAM in it or anything else, no expansion cards, just a couple of case fans that are blue and they have LEDs in them. I do have one more case fan I can throw in up top to help with cooling as I drop half the stuff. But this does not have any LEDs, but it's just a clear Antec cooler. So I can probably use that. And because I've got to really have the effect going, I've got one of these early tube lights. I don't know, I think these are just EL wire. I know it's not fluorescent and it's definitely not LED, but I've got one of these that I can put in there and kind of mount onto the bottom to give it some effects. Now, of course, we've got RGB and everything all over the place, but we didn't have that back then. We had this, so we'll throw that on there as well, and we'll get that going. But first, I'm really curious to see what CPU is in here. So let's do that first. I will also say that building modern PCs is not drastically different than these used to be. I mean, you still have an ATX motherboard, you still have a processor socket, and in AMD's case, you even still have pins in the socket. Still have your heat sink, although you also have water cooling, which is really popular now. Although water cooling did exist back then, just not as prevalent. So have your RAM slots. Instead of IDE, you've got SATA, M.2, NVMe, sorry. So they're not that radically different. I mean, a lot of motherboards will have onboard video, but if you're a gamer, you got a graphics card in there anyway. That's what this AGP slot here is for. So Anyway, let's take a look at the CPU and see what we've got here. It's an AMD Athlon. It's probably an Athlon XP 2000, I'm going to guess, because that's all it says here. So yeah, according to this, it is, according to CPU World, it is an AMD Athlon XP 2000 Plus. So now, the thing with these Athlons is that the rating on them wasn't necessarily what they were running as, if I remember correctly. Like, or maybe this was a different series of AMD processors. I don't remember. Oh yeah, no. So this is what it was. They would use these rating numbers, these PR numbers. So in this case, it's 2000, but in reality, it would be running at around 1600 megahertz. It's just that that's the type of performance this could give you is equivalent to a 2000 megahertz or a 2 gigahertz CPU. This was in a way to kind of compete with Intel a little bit more because they knew they couldn't necessarily compete on a one-to-one basis, but they also didn't have to because during this time, the Pentium 4, which is what the Athlon XP was competing against, was just not a very efficient processor. It would heat up pretty quickly. The fans would ramp up. They would get loud. They weren't very efficient in doing their calculations and everything. And this was even after they reduced it from the socket 423 to a socket 478. So AMD could get away with stuff like that. They could, charge less for their CPUs, running at a lower clock rate, but say it's equivalent to this, and most people would buy it. And again, because of what you're paying for an AMD versus Intel, in many cases you were better off, especially since when the Pentium 4 first came out, they were using expensive Rambus RAM, which gave it a huge performance boost. AMD decided to go with just DDR, which wasn't as of a performance monster as Rambus memory was, but it was also a fraction of the cost. So it gained in popularity, and it was around that time that Intel realized that they were falling behind, that they redesigned the CPU, smaller socket 478, and started supporting DDR memory. But by then, AMD had a good foothold in the market. But it was around the Athlon and Athlon XP era where AMD really took off, started to really become noticed by consumers, especially those that are looking for performance, such as gamers. Now, Intel did eventually take the crown back with their Core series processors, the Core Duo, Core 2 Duo, etc. Apparently, they went back to their older Pentium 3 design, and more specifically, the Pentium Mobile design, because it was a good performing processor that didn't require as much power, and they kind of used that to build out the Core Duo and the Core 2 Duo, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, AMD, I guess, is on top again with the Ryzen series. I don't really keep up with it too much anymore. But anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to go give this a quick cleaning because there's dust and stuff everywhere. And I'm probably going to use this motherboard. I pre-downloaded a lot of drivers for the other MSI board I was going to use, but I'm going to use this one. I think this is going to be a better choice for me. So let's go and take care of that. Okay, it's as good as it's going to get. So for now, if I had an air compressor, I'd be able to do a much better job than just a can of air and holding a vacuum tube, vacuum cleaner hose, next to it to collect whatever dust I could. But anyway, yeah, it's otherwise in good shape. Now, what I'm going to have to do first is I'm going to disconnect all these cables here. I know. I've already got the front panels hooked up, and I'll have to hook them up again. And one of the most annoying things of building a computer is trying to figure out the front panel connectors. Now, for those of you who don't know, the front panel connectors are those that control the power button, reset button, the power LED, the hard drive activity light, and then the other things that you may have. Older computers also had a turbo button that you would potentially connect that way. But I want to get all these wires out of the way, and anyway. I believe this board also supports USB 2.0, which will be a problem for Windows 95. Not that it really supported USB 1.0 or 1.1. There was a special release of Windows 95 that came out. I believe it was Windows 95 C, and it was basically released just to include some rudimentary USB support. But even then, it really didn't support as much as it should have. So it is what it is. Now that actually I will leave there because I believe that's the temperature gauge. And this is the temperature sensor. Might as well use it since I've got it in there, right? But we'll disconnect the USB and then the front panel and get them out of the way. Now, fortunately, I don't have to set any jumpers for the CPU like I would have with a Pentium 5, 46, maybe even a Pentium 2 and the K6 II. I don't remember. It's been a while. But yeah, anyway, we'll get started, except there's a little... No, I can't get that out of there. Well, I guess that dust bunny is going to stay in there, so... Okay, now the reason I needed rubbing alcohol is because I need to clean off the old heatsink compound from both the CPU and the cooling fan, although that's kind of a bulky fan for that kind of a processor. I may go with a different one. I still have to clean off the heatsink compound, but at least I won't be using an oversized fan, although it'll be great for cooling, that's for sure, or in the event that I want to overclock or anything like that. But I kind of feel like this Cooler Master cooler will probably be more than enough, although it's incredibly dusty in here. Do I have another one? I don't. Well, maybe I will be using that one then. It's not as dirty. So be it. So first thing we'll do, since the motherboard's already installed, normally what I would do is I would install the CPU first on the board and then the heatsink after, only because of the clip mechanism. Newer computers, a lot of people install the heatsink beforehand. Kind of excited. This will be the first time this CPU has been used in 15 years. Actually, 20. This board should support it. If it doesn't, I'll go up one, CPU support-wise. I really would like to use the 600. Just like that, it all comes off even after 20 years. Well, probably 15 to 18 years. It's probably how long it's not been in use. CPU itself came out, I think, around 2000, maybe 2001. Good enough for me. Leave that there in case I need it. Now I need some heatsink compound, which I've got somewhere. Sorry for all the jump cuts, but... So I've got some Arctic Silver 5, which is probably going to be a little overkill for this, but that's fine. Don't need too much, though, because you just need to get it on the core itself. These CPUs, early AMD CPUs, did not have heat spreaders integrated with them. Everything was directly to the heatsink, so... It might have been a little bit too much, but yeah, that's fine. We'll make do. Reinstall. Make sure it's latched. Oops, looks like it wasn't latched. That's the tricky part. There, that is definitely latched now. At least on one side. The other side might be a little tricky. Especially since the fan's in the way. There. Gotta be a little violent with it sometimes. I also realize I don't have a power supply. I'll have to grab one of those two in a little bit. But for now, we'll keep installing components. It'll be easier to install these components without a power supply anyway, because I don't have all those wires in the way. Now, I did say that this board supported DDR1, which is fine because that's all the Athlon Duron series supported. Now, how much do I want to put in here? I know Windows 3.1 I don't think can work above a certain amount. I don't remember the exact limit, but I don't think I have anything that's small anyway. 64 meg. Oh, this is PC 100. That won't work. Same with that. Same with that. And that apparently got a lot of PC 100 memory and not a whole lot of DDR. 256, 256. I might have too much memory. Maybe the BIOS will allow me to hide certain amounts. 128. We'll go with the smallest amount that I've got for now. In the event that this won't work for Windows 3.1, then I'll upgrade to maybe 512 and utilize that for with Windows XP, Windows 98. I'll just leave that there. I don't care so much about that. I don't believe I can access it from behind anyway with this case. Oh no, maybe I can. It's not going to be an accurate temperature anyways because I'm not going to put this directly under the CPU or directly under the CPU because I don't want to risk damaging any of the pins or anything like that. So we had a great time where if I didn't have the motherboard already installed, I could easily feed this through and utilize it because this is definitely getting caught on some of these pins. There we go. Okay. Good enough right there. Wish I had some tape to put over it to hold it in place, but yeah, it'll do. Like I said, I'm not really interested in that anyway. I just might as well use it since it's there. This sticker should not be in here because this is not a gigabyte board. And it is not the enhanced AGP riser. Don't remember what the heck that was for anyway. Probably got the board somewhere, maybe. But whatever, we won't need it anymore. A little bit more rubbing alcohol to clean up the adhesive. Need to install a graphics card. If I remember, this was a BFG branded GeForce card, say an FX 5600. So, problem with the NVIDIA is even if I were to go back to a Riva TNT2 or TNT driver, I don't believe that there were 3.1 drivers for it. So I might have to try to find some generic VESA drivers. Now, what else did I want to put in here? Oh, yes, that's right, the capture card. But I also have, and this will be a little overkill, but I know that it'll work with Windows 3.1, and that is a Sound Blaster Live. Well, it's not a true live card, it's a Sound Blaster 512. It's like a stripped down Sound Blaster Live. And there were hacks you could install with the drivers, I think at least with Windows XP, that will let you install the full Audigy drivers in Suite. So, but the reason this will work with Windows 3.1 is because this will also work with just generic old Sound Blaster 16 drivers, whereas the onboard sound, I believe it's just AC97 audio, which won't have Windows 3.1 drivers necessarily. So we will install this. I'll install it in this slot since it's already open. And now the capture card itself, I think we'll need at least Windows 98, if not Windows XP. So Windows 3.1 won't be out of the question, but that's fine. Now this TV tuner card is from way before HD TV came out, and it even says NTSC on it, which is North American Television Standard. This will not work with new television signals at all. I could hook up like a converter box and use it, but otherwise this is useless. So what's nice is that this is a coax input, and there's a composite input as well. So again, retro game consoles can be hooked up to this, and I'll be able to capture direct footage. I did use this when I first bought it as a TV card and had a VCR hooked up, and I'd use it to record television shows from cable TV. If I'm out at school or work or whatever, and I need a expansion slot cover because there's this open over here, and I don't have any more cards that I want to put in anyway because that's all there is to it. Should have some brackets. I kept most of my old stuff. Way more than I probably should have. Some people might call it being a pack rat. I don't care. So there's that. Now, as I said earlier, or maybe I didn't, there are no SATA ports in here, so I have to stick with an IDE drive, and I've got a couple of them, fortunately. I hope I have an IDE CD-ROM drive, though, somewhere. That might be a problem, although I may have an adapter to go from SATA to IDE. Might be the opposite, we'll see. One way or the other, I'll make it work. So I did have one, fortunately. It's just a CD-ROM drive. It's not a burner or anything, but that's fine. I also grabbed a power supply just to be safe. It's an older power supply. I don't even know if it works, but I do have one more that should work with this system. It's a little dirty in there. I might have to clean it out after the fact, but I'm not going to do that now. I want to get this thing put together and at least test it to the point where it turns on and can boot from floppy or CD-ROM at least. So we've got the optical drive, and I have a 40 gig max Tor hard drive, 5400 RPM. It's the only IDE drive that I believe I have. No, I take that back. I may have a 200 gig, but that's going to be way overkill for now. I can always add as a secondary drive in the event that these video captures work, but they take up a lot of storage. So what we'll do first is get the optical drive installed, and then we'll get the hard drive installed. And I don't know if the overhead's catching all of this because of just how close this case is going to be to the camera. But I'll try. And this won't slide in that way. I have to go from the front. Really hope I don't have to take out the front panel. The entire front bezel, actually. Looks like I might not have to. Don't know how far I have to go in with this because the bezel will hide the fact that the drive is a different color than the case. It's kind of why I like this case, because I was able to hide everything. They don't really have silver optical drives, floppy or CD. So this has to go into number 5. Now I'm not going to install 8 screws in this whole thing. I'm probably just going to do up, down, and then same thing on the other side. It's really all that's needed, to be honest. Really hoping that this optical drive works too. I don't know if any of this stuff works. I may be recording this for nothing and you ain't ever going to see it. Or I may release it as an outtake video with lots of cuts just because I want to get to the good stuff. Now I did have another socket 7 motherboard. Or socket A motherboard, sorry. It was a micro ATX, but it had some bad caps, which I'm going to try to replace. I don't know if I've got them in stock or not. I may have to order them, but I'm going to probably wait till this whole world situation is kind of died down, because I don't know how long it'll take to get here. I've already had some things delayed, understandably, as a result of the current global situation. So I'll just do this and make do with what I've got. I might be able to order some stuff through eBay. I don't think they have some of the same restrictions that Amazon and other online retailers have. And since this is going to be all older stuff anyway, eBay is probably my best bet. So there's that. Now, it's going to be the fun part. Well, actually not yet. I still have to install the hard drive. After that will be the fun part in connecting the front panel connectors all over again. And now I need to make sure. I only have one IDE cable. I'm going to need to get another IDE cable because I want to hook these up to separate channels. And this is set to master. And what this means is that this is the first drive plugged into an IDE port if you're using the same port for 2 devices. I believe the CD-ROM drive is set to cable select, so whatever. That's fine. Let's get this installed first, and then I can worry about I'll install it a little bit lower in front of the fan here. Get a little bit of that cooling effect going on it. So the only IDE cable I could find right away is this round one, and these were popular towards the end of the IDE lifespan because of the fact that they were round, so they were using a lot less space than the more traditional flat cables were. One of the concerns during this time in computing was airflow, because computers were getting faster, they were getting hotter. When you had a 486, wires were just all over the place and just a giant jumbled mess, and no one really cared. But with these newer systems getting hotter, even though AMD was more efficient than Intel was during this time, it still was a concern. So anything people could do to increase airflow, they did it. So the rounded cables were very popular. And all they really did to make a rounded cable is just pull these apart carefully without damaging, and then they just bind them together. In this case, they put them in tubing and went from there. I know, sacrilege, gigabyte ID cable and an Asus motherboard, but whatever. And then the last cable, which is the floppy cable, and I wish I had a shorter one, but I don't. So we make do with what I've got. And since it's the first one, we'll just tuck this away. And the red stripe for floppy cables always point towards the power. And they're kind of notched. I don't know if you can see. Now these cables are in the way here. Let me see about raising this up. There's a little notch here on a floppy drive where it should match up with this little. Oh, this one doesn't have it, but sometimes some of the cables will have a little bump, like a little bump in them, like this here. It basically just helps to guide the cable in. But in case it doesn't have it, red stripe always points towards power. So some of the floppy cables might also be keyed a certain way. Okay, so that's done. And we'll use the rounded one for the optical drive. There, and we'll use the flat one for the ID drive that's way down here. And this is going to be the fun part, is hooking up front panel connectors. Let me see which camera's got a better view. Now these should be labeled. You know what? I am going to disconnect the ID cable first. Get it out of the way. Dropping stuff everywhere. Watch out. So now I've got all of this stuff hooked up. It's getting hot in here with some of these lights on. And I've got the door closed to try to keep some ambient noise out. And let's get the ID cable hooked back up again. I don't even know if there's anything on this drive. Definitely gonna have to format it. I'll put that there and that there. Can't hook up really any of these because of the fact that I don't have a power supply installed yet, so we'll get that going next. Okay, so, and that came off. Of course it did, because why can't I have nice things? So we'll combine these two here and utilize this. This is not going to be the prettiest design, but for now, maybe I just want to get it working. And this will utilize this one up here. Theoretically, I'm done. Hook up a monitor, some power, keyboard. I don't even need a mouse yet. Got some extra connectors up here. I don't know what these are for, though. Jammed into the floppy drive. So these must power these lights maybe, or maybe it powers front panel display. Well, whatever. For now, I'm not worrying about it. I want to get this thing booted up and working, and that's that. So let's do that now. Sorry for the janky setup, but it comes on. Nothing's on fire yet, so get into the BIOS here. Cool, made it in. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. And definitely have to set time and date. I don't know what time it is or what date it is. Joking about the date, but the time, I want to say it's, let's see, 10:35. That's going to be PM, and the date is April 6th. No, sorry, it's the 4th. Apparently I don't know the day. Detects the hard drive, that's good. Sees this, the optical drive. Sees the CPU speed correctly. God, this is loud, but 'tis what it is. Memory frequency, we'll leave it auto. I don't want to overclock or anything. In fact, I can probably use this to underclock if I had to, but let's see. No, we don't have that. We want legacy support here. That's for OS2 support, so I could probably use that for Windows 3.1 support. Force it down to 64 gigs, or quote-unquote less. That's fine. Sure, why not? I don't think this one does. Both of them on. And that should be all of it here. Nope. That's fine, fine. Nah, I don't care about that. And this we're going to set to disabled because I want to use the Sound Blaster. Good. We want that. AGP video card. No boot ROM. That, by the way, so you can boot your computer from the network. Great in the corporate environment, or if you have like a huge test lab, but useless if you're just a regular person. So, or I shouldn't say useless, but most people are not going to need it. Front panel display I don't think is working, neither are the front lights. Oh no. I guess it is working. 82.6 Fahrenheit. Sure, that sounds right. Which is the motherboard temperature close to it. CPU's a little hotter, but that's fine. It's not going to be able to accurately read the temperature sensor from the CPU because it's not in direct contact with it, and I don't want it to be. So we want to no, we'll choose no for now. I'm going to try to boot it off of a floppy if I can get one that works. Good. Yeah, why not? Full screen logo, sure, why not? And I don't want to save the changes yet because I need to get some floppy disks to see if this is going to work at all. Hang on. Now, I don't know if the microphone's picking it up or not, but I can hear that hard drive, and it's very loud. More than likely, it is probably not going to work very long. Do I have a DOS boot disk? I've got all this other crap. DOS 622 boot disk. We'll see if the floppy drive works. And we'll also see if the battery, CMOS battery works. So if I unplug it, plug it back in, and it doesn't retain the settings, I'll need to replace it, obviously. Floppy drive is seeking. So far, so good. Ooh, it's booting. This is the first time I've used a floppy drive on a PC. Oh, the disk might be bad. Or it could be the drive, I don't know, but it booted. You see that. Let's fail it and see what happens. Oh, it, okay, never mind. So it's a basic boot disk, and I can see, oh, but there might not be a bootable partition. Oops. And I don't have F disk on this one, so let's eject. Windows 95 boot disk, maybe, which would just be DOS 7 effectively. Okay, so that reads this one, no problem. So more than likely the DOS 622 disk is going bad. But this does have more commands. I want F disk because I want to see if the hard drive has any partitions on it. It probably does, and it's probably NTFS with my luck. Oh, incorrect DOS version. That's why I got to boot off of this disk. So Control Alt Delete, three-fingered salute. We want generic CD-ROM support because I don't know what this will be compatible with. I don't even know what brand this is. So High something, but it's not Hitachi. I know that. Maybe high tech or whatever. But I don't want to. I don't want to have this like a 3-4 hour long video. My channel is not popular enough for you guys to sit through that long, and this will probably be like a half-hour video, if not longer. But I'm going to try to get it down to be under an hour. So we want F disk. And let's display partition information. NTFS, yeah, so it can't even read it, which is fine. But what we'll do for now is we will delete what's on here currently. I believe it's 4. Yep. Yes. Yes. I don't know what's on here, but it's gone. Oh no. Don't care. So we want to create one. I'm going to create multiple partitions on here. And because if I want this to be a multi-boot system, I'm going to have to install DOS and Windows 3.1 first, because that has to take over the bootloader. Then to do 95, and then that'll replace the 3.1 bootloader. And it should add 3.1 to it, and then 98, and then it's going to be a mess. I'm going to have a second hard drive in here just for alternative operating systems, because I'm going to have DOS 3.1, Windows 95, Windows 98, and what I'll then probably do is have NT4, NT351, 4, and 2000 XP on a separate disk, because those I can do extended partitions with old school DOS and Windows, but I'll just have those 3 on there, and then on the second drive I'll have for NTFS stuff. So we'll create a primary DOS partition. Is it not giving me? No, we do not want the maximum size. What do I want? So the max I can do is 2 gigs, which makes sense because that's all FAT, which is, I think, FAT16 technically. That's all the FAT file system will support, is up to 2 gigs. There was FAT12, I believe, which only supported like 512 megs or something like that. I may be completely wrong. But so we can do 2 gigs, but that's going to be for Windows 95. I don't even know if Windows 3.1 can see that much. So what we'll do is we'll set this to 512. And escape to continue. Now we'll make sure we set this as active for now. And then we want to create another partition. We'll create another primary partition. Oh, nope, you can't, that's right. So I have to create an extended partition with which then I can create additional partitions within that. So I don't know why this shows this. I might need to do a little format or use something like gparted. Oh, the optical drive does. Oh, it does eject. Good. So I can use my gparted system. Sure, whatever. Yeah, we'll create that. And we'll create another one for Windows 98. And we don't want to create any more. So let's display the partition table. And yes, so we'll see if this works. Let me go back to 4, and that is active, escape. You must restart, so let's reboot. I'll have to format at least the C drive. So we want to do format, we'll do C:/F for flash/S to copy system files over, so I can see if it can boot off of it. Maybe it's not /F. Let's do format/question. /Q, not /F. And I really wish I had DOSKey installed because I don't. Oh, it is. Cool. /Q/S. I don't need to do a full. Oh, duh. It's been a while since I've had to use DOS, as you can see. Got too used to the GUI. So that's going. Let me see if I can find a CD to boot from. Volume label, we'll call this DOS 622. I hope this is a CD. It's DVD writing software, but I'm pretty sure they put it on CD. I don't know what drive letter the CD-ROM drive is, though. Is it Q? Nope. D:? Nope. So, is it E? Nope. Is it F? Yes. Okay, so the CD-ROM drive at least reads. Let's look at DOS driv. Okay, so this is just basically how to install the DVD burner that I apparently bought a while back, a Samsung one. Do I have edit on here? Probably not. Oh, I do. Look at that. Let's see if I can read contents from the CD. It can. Let's see if it can actually read that document, though. Hey, look at that. So CD-ROM drive works. All right. So yeah, that's it for now. This is the end of part one of this semi-retro build. Part two will be installing operating systems, and I will include if I can't get Windows 3.1 to work. I'm not going to try to cheat that. I may have to trim the video back and speed it up because I don't want to have, a half-hour long video if it doesn't install. This might be more than two parts now that I think about it, but either way, whatever. I'll figure that part out next. If you liked today's video, go ahead, hit the thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't yet, and maybe leave a comment. And if you didn't like the video, hit the thumbs down. But if you do that, please leave a comment so that I can use any constructive criticism to help improve future videos. Thanks all, and I'll catch you later.